many lands into which Islam slowly spread. Describe how trade helped Islam spread into new areas. Identify the three Muslim empires that controlled much of Europe, Asia, and Africa from the 1400s to the 1800s. Muslim armies, they conquered many lands. After Muhammad, who was the great prophet of Islam, dies, his followers quickly chose Abu Bakr as their kind of leader. He was one of Muhammad's first converts. He became the first caliph, which is a title Muslims use for the highest leader of Islam. It means successor in Arabic. They were to be examples and live according to the Quran. Beginnings of an empire. Abu Bakr led a series of battles to unite Arabia into a unified Muslim territory. Then he looked to expand. He used a strong army to do this. He defeated Persia and the Byzantine Empire, who were weak from fighting, and allowed Christians and Jews to continue to practice their own religions. Early caliphs came from the Umayyad family. They moved the capital to Damascus in Syria and continued to expand the empire. They took over the lands in Central Asia and North India again, and then they again controlled, therefore, the trade of the Eastern Mediterranean. They conquered as well parts of North Africa. In 711 AD, Arabs and the Berber army, these were people in North Africa, invaded Spain and they conquered it. They tried then to invade present-day France, but were stopped by a Christian army. The Moors, they were a group then that ruled Spain for the next 700 years. In 749 AD, new Islamic dynasty then came to power, and these were the Abbasids, and reorganized the government then to make it easier to rule, and this allowed them to even spread more. Islam spread through the areas it conquered by the Muslims. Trade helped spread Islam also. Merchants, mostly Arabs, took it to India, Africa, and Southeast Asia. Some of India remained Hindu, but many coastal cities became Muslim communities. Many African societies had both African and Muslim customs, and many African leaders did convert to Muslim. Trade brought Islam also to Malaysia and Indonesia, and new products brought to the Muslim lands as well made things interesting for the Muslims. And trade made the Muslims very, very wealthy. There was a mix of culture, of course, with all of this. Islam spread through trade and warfare. Muslims generally, they practiced religious tolerance over the people they converted. The Christians and Jews particularly kept their rights, and this was partially because they did share some of the same views with the Muslims. They did pay, however, special taxes and were forbidden from preaching to others. Many people did convert to Islam, and they adopted the Arabic culture, therefore, and their language also. Arabics also adopted some cultures from the lands that they conquered. The Arabic language and the share of religion then helped unify the Islamic world's people. The growth of cities. This reflected a blending of culture. Trade brought people and created wealth that supported cultural development in the cities. Cities such as Baghdad became very grand, and Baghdad actually became the capital of the Islamic Empire in 762 AD. Trade and farming made Baghdad wealthy. Caliphs supported science and art in the city, and it became a center, therefore, of culture and learning. Cordoba in Spain became the showplace of Muslim civilization. By the early 900s, it became then the most advanced city in Europe. Three Muslim empires. The Great Expansion lasted until the 1100s. Three non-Arab Muslim groups built very large, powerful empires. The Ottoman Empire. Muslim Turkish warriors, they in the 1200s began to take land from the Christian Byzantine Empire. Eventually, they ruled the land from Eastern Europe to Northern Africa and Arabia. The key to their expansion was their army. Their army they called the Janissaries, and they were slave soldiers. They were Christian boys, mostly from the conquered towns. They converted them to Islam and then made them into fierce warriors, and they also had a lot of gunpowder weapons. In 1453, they were led by Mehmed II, and he captured Constantinople, which was the Byzantine capital. He then became known as the Conqueror. He made Constantinople then the new capital and called it Istanbul, and turned the great church in the city into a mosque. A later sultan, or an Ottoman ruler, conquered more land in Asia Minor, Syria, and Egypt. Holy cities of Mecca and Medina accepted then as well Ottoman rule. It reached its height under Suleiman I. He was often called the Magnificent. He took control of the eastern Mediterranean and farther into Europe, and controlled the Ottoman Empire, therefore kind of controlled all this area until the early 1800s. The Safavid Empire. These were Persian Muslims. They were gaining power in the east and in present-day Iran. They came into conflict with the Ottomans and other Muslims. Conflict arose from a past argument over who should be a caliph. In the mid-600s, Muslims split then into two groups: Shia, who thought only Muhammad's descendants could become caliphs, and Sunni, who didn't believe the caliphs had to be related to Muhammad. So we see the Muslim division occurring. The Ottomans were Sunnis, and the Safavids were Shias. Safavid Empire began in 1501 when its leader conquered Persia. And this leader's name was Ismail. And so he conquers Persia. He took the ancient Persian title of Shah, or king, made Shiism, the belief in the Shia, the official religion of the empire, and worked to spread it throughout. He tried to conquer more land and convert others. He was defeated, though, by the Ottomans in 1514. Safavid's greatest leader was in 1588, and he became the Shah, and his name was Abbas. The Safavids, they did blend Persian and Muslim cultures. They built beautiful mosques and a capital, and they did grow wealthy from trade, but they only last until about the 1700s, the mid-1700s. To the east, near northern India, there were Turkish Muslims from Central Asia. They were established in 1526 by Babur, and so this is the Mughal Empire. In the mid-1500s, the Emperor Akbar, he conquered new land and worked to strengthen the government. He also started religious tolerance policy but did extend tax on any non-Muslims, but nonetheless, people were at least allowed to practice their own religion. Under Akbar, Hindus and Muslims lived in peace. There was a unique culture as well that developed. It was a blend of Persian, Islamic, and Hindu elements. It became known then as well for its grand works of architecture. For example, Taj Mahal. which is a tomb in the 1600s that was built by Emperor Shah Jahan. In the late 1600s, an emperor reversed Akbar's religious tolerance policy, however. He destroyed a bunch of temples, and many violent riots erupted. The Mongol Empire then soon fell apart in the late 1600s, early 1700s. So today we explained how Muslim armies conquered many lands into which Islam slowly then spread. We described how trade helped spread Islam into new areas. So not only were they trading goods, but of course they were also trading ideas. We identified the three Muslim empires that controlled much of Europe, Asia, and Africa from the 1400s all the way into the 1800s. And then of course we looked at too how Islam separated into Shiites and as well into the Sunni. So remember the Shiites, they thought that only Muhammad's descendants could be caliphs, or kind of like priests or head leaders. And the Sunni believed that was not true. So that was a major split, and that still exists today in the Islamic religion. But the Islamic religion, we see, had a huge influence over so much of the world during the 1400s and 1800s.
Sikap tapo.